Well, hello everybody and welcome. Miss Terry's here and today we've got a video on interval notation. Interval notation is used when we're doing inequalities. So let's get started. So interval notation is a way to describe continuous sets of real numbers within given boundaries. They look like ordered pairs. They have a number with a comma and then another number. And they're also considered to be a shorthand way of writing an inequality interval. We're going to use brackets and parentheses. Brackets are going to show equal to or concluded. We're going to use them with our less than, or equal to, or greater than or equal to, also closed circles. The parentheses show not equal to or not included. You're going to use those with less than or greater than. Also, when we use negative infinity and infinity, you will, in open circles, you will use parentheses. Okay, so how do you write these things? What happens? You put the start of the interval, the end of the interval, you separate them with commas, and then you decide on the outside if you're going to be using a parentheses or a bracket. You won't ever use both of them on each side. You'll use one or the other on the left and right of your two start and ends of your intervals, and be sure to keep them separated by commas. Okay, what is this infinity? Infinity is a quantity that does not have a bound, never ends, goes on and on and on and on forever. Since we don't have a boundary, then therefore we're going to be using the parentheses. Always make sure that you remember that negative infinity is all the way to the left, and then the positive infinity is always to the right. Okay, let's try some examples. We're going to write the interval notation of x is greater than 3. So step 1, we're going to decide which symbol to use. We have closed circles with brackets, we have open circles with parentheses. Since this is greater than, it does not show equality, we're going to use an open circle, and I place that at the 3. Step 2, decide where you're going to shade the unknown values. This one says greater than, so you'll notice that I shaded to the right. Decide where you started and where you stopped. Don't forget about the negative and positive infinity. So think about, where did this stop? Look at the green part. Where did it start and where did it end? Step 4 is to write your interval notation. So we're going to write our interval notation, and since we used an open circle, it's going to start with a parentheses. On the 3 is where it starts. We have a comma, and the boundary ends at positive infinity. And don't forget that infinities always have a parentheses sign. Okay, let's try another one. Write the interval notation of x is less than or equal to -1. Step 1, we have to decide which symbols we're going to use. This one is equality, so we are going to use the closed circle. The closed circle will be put at -1. Step 2, we need to decide where to shade the unknown values. Less than is to the left, so I shaded to the left. Step 3, decide where we started and where we stopped. Again, don't forget about the infinity signs. So you have to think about, where did we start? All the way down there to the left, where is that? That is negative infinity. So we started at negative infinity. We're going to write our interval notation. Starts at negative infinity with a parenthesis sign. We have a comma, and then this one ends at -1. You'll notice that on the -1, I put a bracket. Remember, bracket goes with equality, which means basically the inequality symbol just has a line under it. If the inequality symbol has a line under it, then you know that you are showing equality and you have to use the brackets. Okay, next. This one is a compound inequality. We're going to write the interval notation of -2 is less than or equal to x is less than 4. Step 1, we always have to decide which symbols we're going to use. You'll notice here on the -2 it shows equality, but on the 4 it does not. So I used two different symbols this time, a closed circle and an open circle. Next, we're going to decide where to shade the unknown values. The unknown values of x are in the middle of these two circles. We decide where we started and stopped, and then we write our interval notation. And this one started at the -2, ended at 4, and don't forget to decide if you're going to use brackets or parentheses. So the interval value is at the bottom. Okay, next. This one is also a compound inequality. We're going to write the interval notation of x is less than -3 and x is greater than or equal to 2. So step 1, we have to decide which symbols to use. And you'll notice here that at the -3, it does not show equality, so I used an open circle. And then on the +2, it did show equality, so I used a closed circle. Step 2, decide where to shade the unknown values. Less than -3 is to the left, and then greater than 2 is to the right. So you see this interval kind of splits. We have some values on the left, we have some values on the right, and then we have some blank spots in the middle that do not show a unknown value of this interval notation. Step 3 is to decide where you started and stopped on both intervals, and we will be using a U to show the union of those intervals, and then we write the interval notation. Don't forget where it started and stopped. We're going to go to the green section first, which starts at -infinity and goes to -3. Both of those are with parentheses. And then we union that with the yellow section that begins at +2 and goes all the way to infinity. Take note that I do have a bracket on the 2 because the 2 shows equality. All right. So when you're asked to put your answers in interval notation, now you know what to do. So we don't just graph them. We put the answers in interval notation. Hope you enjoyed the video. Always don't forget to hit subscribe. You can always follow me on Twitter at MathWithDabbit. And if you would like to have some live tutoring, you can find information for that at www.tntcenter.com. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed.